2,000 years ago, the earth was trodden by no less, if not more, colorful Roman legions. What was the life of simple workers serving the emperor like? No analyses, charts, or heavy historical data. In the next few minutes, you will learn only about the everyday life, salary, and entertainment of an ordinary Roman legionary. Let's say our guy's name is Quadratus. Nothing surprising, such a name indeed existed at that time, and it can often be found on Roman tombstones. To be precise, it's a nickname, as Roman citizens' names were very colorful. They consisted of three parts: praenomen, nomen, and cognomen. Simply put, it refers to the first name, family name, and nickname. The only difference from modern times is in the last part. While we have a patronymic as the third part of a full name, the Romans had a nickname, and it is the nickname that can be called the real unique name. For example, Emperor Gaius Julius Caesar is a whole puzzle. Gaius is the personal name, Julius is the family name, and Caesar is the nickname, the meaning of which scientists still cannot decipher. Some say it was a nickname for hairy people, while others claim that Caesar meant divine. Or in ancient Rome, there was no such salad, but that's not the point. The point is that boys received their names from their fathers, so the father of Emperor Caesar was also named Gaius Julius Caesar. To somehow distinguish sons from fathers, nicknames were used: senior, junior, or simply ordinal numbers. With girls, it was even more amusing. At birth, the father's family name became their first name, and they usually received their family name from their husband. For example, the daughter of Gaius Julius Caesar received the name Julia, and after marrying Gnaeus Pompey the Great, she became Julia Pompey. Meanwhile, if there were many boys in the family, one of them took a second or even third nickname. As a result, by the end of the Roman Empire, there were people with as many as 5 names. Even the famous Caligula was actually also named Gaius Julius Caesar, and to avoid confusion with his well-known ancestor killed by Brutus, historians use only the nickname in textbooks, which is actually the emperor's nickname. But our mercenary is a simple worker, so he bears an ordinary name. Let's say the best sensei Quadratus. One of our ancestors was the legendary best sensei Element who fought against Hannibal. Even 300 years later, we continue to bear his name, and only the nickname Quadratus is unique to us, the origin of which is also shrouded in mystery. Perhaps we love to eat too much. It is the 15th year of our era. The Roman Empire is stronger than ever. From northern France to the middle of Africa, it owns everything, and the credit goes to the powerful army of legionaries, one of whom is our Quadratus. By the way, we could be called Lucius only by relatives. Mostly unfamiliar people used family names or nicknames, so most often our mercenary was called Cincius or Quadratus. Our father, like the vast majority of legionaries' parents, was an ordinary poor farmer. Therefore, as soon as Quadratus turned 18, he joined the army. Although it was practically mandatory, the conditions at that time were excellent. Not long ago, Emperor Gaius Julius Caesar raised the legionaries' salary to 900 sesterces a year. That's about 9 gold coins, and 3 more are given as a bonus for signing a service contract. Historical data from the excavations of Pompeii indicate that a person could easily live on 2 sesterces a day. No wonder, as a sesterce could buy as many as 4 bowls of soup. If anyone is interested, a very rough exchange rate to modern money gives 2 euros for 1 sesterce. For example, a liter of wine. In the 15th year of our era, old Quadratus could buy something for 2 euros, and if the guy wanted a mule, it cost about 1,000. Not bad analogies with reality, right? True, the term of service was terrifying. A whole 20 years. Before our era, it sometimes lasted only 6, but a little later, in the life of our Quadratus, closer to the end of the 1st century, one could end up serving for all 26. The good news is that there was no fun life even for civilians, especially for poor workers who worked 14 hours a day, so the fate of a legionary was not so bad, because at the end of the service, they were given a discharge payment of 12,000 sesterces, and sometimes quite fat pieces of land plus loot during campaigns. There are many stories of deception, non-payments, and the assignment of lifeless territories to former legionaries as a reward for service. But our Quadratus is a good mercenary, and misfortunes will bypass him, and this will be in 20 years, but for now, ahead are the legendary 4 months of recruit training. In Vegetius's treatise on military affairs, there is a banal but true phrase: the fact that the Romans managed to conquer the whole world can only be explained by their military training, camp discipline, and military practice. says Vegetius, and he is absolutely right. Unlike later formations, legionaries were machines. After exhausting training, our Quadratus learned to walk 35 kilometers in 5 hours at a fast pace with 20 kilograms of equipment. Along the way, he learned a complex system of commands given by horns and banners. Roman generals believed that maintaining formation was the main key to victory. Considering the results of Rome's wars, it's hard to argue with them. During the young fighter's course, all formations were practiced. The tortoise, wedge, fighting with wooden swords, archery. Quadratus will leave this place as a perfect machine for eliminating enemies, and importantly, capable of anything. Not every modern army can boast such care for its soldiers, as legionaries were even taught to swim in gears so as not to accidentally drown when crossing a river. The Crusaders had problems with dysentery and unsanitary conditions, which took the lives of thousands of soldiers. 1,000 years before the Crusades, such problems did not exist in the Roman legions. The health of the legionary was paramount, and any product that reached our little Quadratus was checked by all possible services. Even water was carefully studied by officers so that the soldiers would not be poisoned. And if something went wrong, or a wound was received in battle, ancient Rome was the first in modern history to have special sanitary units. In each region, there were medics, hospitals were built, and a sick soldier received the necessary help. An inscription of an order from one of the legion commanders has survived to modern times, and it says that when storming a city, the camp should be set up several kilometers from the expected site. Why? So that the wounded would not hear the noise of the battle and could calmly regain their strength. Attention was also paid to another important detail: morale. No common canteens and a sense of slavery. Roman legionaries were divided into centuries and, more importantly, contubernia. This is a small squad of 8 people who carried everything together. The idea of the Romans was that this 8 did everything together, from eating to sitting around at night. And going to war, the guys fought primarily not for the emperor, but for their contubernium, for friends and comrades. Moreover, this was not only not prohibited, but also encouraged from above. The soldiers' priority was first the life of comrades, then the prestige of the century of 100 people, and only then the status of the legion of 60 centuries. The Romans revolutionized military affairs because on the battlefield, side by side, not strangers but comrades who had lived together for years went out. On many tombstones of that time, there is a mention of the word brother, demonstrating how far the connections of soldiers went. However, there were similarities with the modern army, as all legions were constantly at war. Our Quadratus could very well serve as a policeman or builder for a whole year. There are known cases when legionaries collected taxes or worked as guards. In peacetime, the legion gathered once a year on Natalis Aquilae, the so-called birthday. A feast, demonstrations, and various celebrations were held to maintain morale, which, although not always high, allowed Rome to conquer half the world. But even on campaigns, legionaries had something to do, as gambling flourished like never before. The guys played dice, heads or tails, which was called head or ship, and even a complicated version of tic-tac-toe called mill wheel. To win on the field, you had to place 3 pieces in a row, and the most avid gamblers invented a prototype of modern backgammon called tabula, in which entire fortunes were lost. It got to the point that tabula was banned at the legislative level, but cunning soldiers found ways to evade it. Let's just hope our Quadratus is not prone to gambling addiction. On average, only 60% of legionaries in the empire lived to retirement, but it should be noted that the figure is significantly spoiled by frontline zones, where legions could lose up to half of their soldiers in a day. One should not pay attention to another prejudice. Even in textbooks, it is difficult to find the phrase that life expectancy in antiquity was 30 years, and a 60-year-old was considered something incredible. This is a lie and a gross lie. The reason for this is the infant mortality rate. With the invention of antibiotics, it rapidly decreased, which gave such a high average life expectancy. After all, if you take an 80-year-old man and a 1-year-old child who died of illness, they lived an average of 40 years each. This is how low life expectancy figures of ancient times are obtained. However, now scientists clearly state that if a person in ancient Rome lived to adulthood, his chances of living a happy old age were not much less than ours. So if old Quadratus survived 20 years in the army, he had a chance by 40 to get a beautiful wife and live peacefully on a farm given by the state or bought with accumulated and vacation funds. Yes, the life of a legionary cannot be called easy, but can anyone call their own life easy? One thing we can say for sure, better. In ancient Rome, soldiers were not considered trash. Work on discipline, combat skills, and physical condition was constantly carried out. The quality of food was controlled, and there were medics ready to help soldiers even on the battlefield. Naturally, all sorts of things happened. Sometimes entire centuries deserted, same-sex relationships flourished in some places, and some legionaries went crazy. But this is rather an exception to the rule, because at least at the peak of its power, the Roman army was a machine comparable in organization to modern states. And our Quadratus believed that he lived a good life and fought for something great, especially since a well-deserved rest and good bonuses from the state loomed ahead. If you want to learn more about the ancient world, don't skimp on a like and write about it in the comments. See you soon, friends!